Before I actually really get into this commentary, I have to give a huge shout out to Mahershala Ali for having to even have the patience and the wherewithal to even deal with the nonsense that he's dealing with right now, because I'm gonna be honest, I would have probably been walked away from this Blade project eons ago when I first started noticing the BS starting to pile on. Now, let me give you a little backstory. I believe back in 2019 at the San Diego Comic-Con, it was announced to the world that they were going to be doing a Blade movie. Everybody, including myself, got so excited because remember how classic the Blade movies were back in the late 90s with Wesley Snipes with the first two Blades. Now that third one definitely left a lot to be desired, and I do mean a lot. Like, that one shouldn't even be mentioned. I barely could watch it, but you know, it was exciting nonetheless, especially since we know what the Blade movie did for what we now know as the MCU and Marvel as a whole. But then, you know, in 2019, it got announced that Mahershala Ali will be playing the title role, and I got even more excited because I knew how much of a talented actor Mahershala Ali is. I've seen him in different television shows, I've seen him in movies, and the guy is extremely talented. A lot of people were kind of like iffy about it. They was like, I don't know if he can. Physically, he doesn't look like it. I said, well, I'm sure he has a really good trainer that is working with him, you know, to do a lot of months of prep to get ready for the role. I am trusting that he's going to do very well with this role. And then it seemed like ever since then, you know, a lot of stuff started to happen after that. Of course, not all at once, but then it started to snowball into different things, like, you know, moving dates around, the script changes, the firing of the director, the firing of the writer, getting a new director, getting a new writer. And I kept saying to myself, this movie feels like it's cursed. It has a dark cloud that is hovered over it. And I said I felt bad for Mahershala because, you know, he's locked in with this project, which is a very big deal, a very big project for the MCU and for superhero movies overall. And he won't be able to really flex and move around, so to speak, to do other things that he could be doing because he's locked in with this. And it's really, really a lot going on. And this week, or this past week, there's been a slew of Marvel news coming out, and none of it has been good. I mean, I'm talking about with Jonathan Majors. Y'all already saw the video I did about him. There's stuff they're talking about with the Marvels, and you know, because that's getting ready to come out. By the time this video goes up, it'll probably be a couple days before that movie comes out. And now Blade, again, the movie that is cursed, is back in the Marvel news again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a couple of articles because there's a couple of things that I wanted to point out with this whole situation. And like I said, Mahershala Ali, he's a better man than most, because most people would have just waved the white flag and just threw the towel in and said, okay, I'm moving on. But the first article that I'm going to read from is from IG, and ironically, all the articles that I'm pulling up were posted within the last day. And I'm recording this video on November 2nd, 2023. So most of these articles, or pretty much all of the ones that I'm going to be reading, were posted yesterday. Now, the first article that I'm reading from IGN is titled "Marvel's Blade reportedly being made for under $100 million after multiple creative changes." Now, we all know when it comes to the MCU, they are known for their big budgeted films, but especially now. They kind of moved away from making movies that are under that. I think the last time they did that was back when they did the first Iron Man movie back in 2008, but that was before the MCU was a thing. That was like a test run to see if that movie could take off and then lead into what we have now, and then everything else has been big budgeted ever since. So the fact that they're making this movie for under $100 million is going to raise some flags for some people. Now, it could be a good thing or a good turnout, because then that means that the movie is still good even with a budget under $100 million, and the movie is still thriving and does very well. Then it would have paid off. But again, at the end of the day, we know that the MCU is known for their big budgeted films, so they would have to hope that even though the movie's under $100 million, that at least the effects that's in there looks like it costs more than $100 million, because people go and judge it. This movie is probably going to be one of the most picked apart movies since Avengers, possibly. I can guarantee it. It's going to be a lot of eyes on this, which I can understand why Mahershala Ali is very heavily invested in it, because he wants this movie to do well. A lot of people are rooting for this movie to actually be successful, not even fail, because they feel like a lot of the failure is coming on the part of the studio and not Mahershala Ali, which is a good thing, because really, in my honest opinion, it's not his fault. But let me go ahead and get into it. A new bombshell report in Variety today details some of the major issues surrounding the MCU, including its long-troubled Blade reboot. As has been reported, Blade has gone through multiple creative overhauls with at least 5 different writers and 2 directors. What's new in the Variety report, though, is some of the creative changes that the script went through and the low budget it's apparently being produced for now. According to the Variety report, there was one version of the script that bumped Oscar-winning star Mahershala Ali down to 4th lead. Let me read that again. According to the Variety report, there was one version of the script that bumped Oscar-winning star Mahershala Ali down to 4th lead. Then why would you call it a Blade movie? They were basically going to do the same thing that they did with Blade Trinity, where he basically got bumped down from the lead. He became a supporting character in his own movie. Now y'all want to make him the 4th lead in his own movie? Now that was just one of the scripts that they had right there. That was one of the scripts. I'm glad they moved far from that. But the fact that was even a thing is very disrespectful. And it says, with a story led by women and quote unquote filled with life lessons. Nobody in their right mind was going to pay to see that. They basically tried to do a Wakanda Forever Part 2. And how ironic when they're doing that, they want to do that where there's a character in that movie that's again a black lead, a black male lead, and they were trying to quote unquote nerf him like they did in Blade Trinity. As Variety reports, it was previously rumored that Ali grew so frustrated with the script that he considered leaving the project altogether. Now, as return, Disney CEO Bob Iger grapples with the MCU's creative and financial issues. Variety reports that speculation around town is that Blade is being made on a budget of less than $100 million, a pretty staggering number considering how much Marvel movies usually cost, which is something I mentioned earlier in the video. For example, Marvel reportedly spent $274.8 million on its next movie, The Marvels. Now that's crazy. I didn't know what the Marvels budget allegedly was, but $274.8 million allegedly for that movie? That is crazy. And you want to give Blade a budget of less than $100 million. See now people gonna be saying, hold on now, something very off is going on here. Now, when it does come to the Blade movies, I will admit Blade is a more grounded character. He's a grounded hero, meaning there's not a lot of effects going on with him and whatnot like you would see with like the Marvels, because it's a lot of CGI there. It's a lot of special effects going on there, or we'll say a Doctor Strange movie. Blade is more grounded. There are effects there, but a lot of it, you can do a lot of practical stuff as well, more practical than non-practical. But still, yeah, they trying to shortchange him with that less than $100 million budget. It says Iger's also brought on Oscar-nominated Logan writer Michael Green to quote-unquote start a new, Variety reports. Countless reports have emerged over the trouble surrounding Blade since Marvel originally announced the project at San Diego Comic-Con in 2019. In 2021, it was revealed that Bassem Tariq would direct Blade. However, Tariq left the project in 2022, shortly before it was scheduled to start filming. That would cause the first delay for Blade as the production embarked on a search for a new director. Lovecraft Country director Jan Demange was eventually hired for the job, with reports emerging that he would attempt to bring the grittier flair to the MCU. Meanwhile, among its many writer changes, Blade brought on Nick Pizzolatto to work on the script back in April, marking a True Detective reunion between him and Ali. The Blade was sheathed yet again, however, amid the writer strike, as additional work still needed to be done on the script. The WGA strike ended in September, meaning that the script can now be worked on again. The actor strike, however, continues, with SAG-AFTRA and Hollywood Studio still in negotiations this week. Regardless, here's hoping we can see some glance at this new take on Blade shortly. For more on today's Big Variety report, and this is read about how Marvel executives apparently considered bringing back the original Avengers game for a new movie, as well as pivoting to Doctor Doom following Jonathan Majors' arrest, which of course I talked about in my video about Jonathan Majors. But like I said, this movie has a huge dark cloud hovering over it that I don't think I've ever seen something like this before. Like, again, this movie has not been on a smooth trajectory since it got announced. The only good thing that we've heard about coming from this movie was its announcement back in 2019. Everything else has been a hindrance, because you gotta think, it got announced in 2019 that, at San Diego Comic-Con. San Diego Comic-Con is usually held in July. Then what happened less than a year later, in March, we entered into the pandemic and we was in quarantine. So nothing was being done at the time. Like no movies were being shot or nothing was being done. So the whole world was pretty much at a standstill. So there was nothing you could do about it. 2021 came along. Everything was starting to slowly but surely open back up. And then it's like 2022 kicked in. Then other things started to happen, like mentioned in the article with this movie. Then we have this year with the writer strike, so they couldn't do nothing with that. Then the actor strike came in right behind it, which they're still in right now. And like the article said, they're in negotiations with this week. This movie got shuffled around with so many dates. It got moved around so many times. Blade, if y'all are unaware, the initial release time for Blade that they wanted was supposed to be October of this year, because they wanted to release it around Halloween, which is perfect because Blade is a vampire, he's a daywalker. That would have been perfect. But then it now has a new date of February 2025, particularly Valentine's Day week or weekend. I'm not sure if what day Valentine's Day falls on in 2025, but somewhere around that time. So now they can say, oh, we'll try to get the Black History Month crowd, like how they did with the first Black Panther movie. Since we couldn't get the Halloween crowd that we wanted initially, we can go with the Black History Month setting, much like the first Black Panther movie. We can only hope that it stays there, because the scary part about it is anything can happen again with this film. Now, the next article that I'm going to read, it was posted 4 hours ago on this website called GameRant.com, and it's going to go into some more additional things. Some of the stuff may sound a little bit repetitive to the other article that I mentioned, but there's also some additional stuff there as well. The title reads on this article, Mahershala Ali's Blade MCU movie might be in more trouble than fans thought. Blade has gone through directors and writers, but one potential loss seems to have spooked even Marvel head Kevin Feige into changing things up. Fans who have been holding out hope for updates on the upcoming Marvel Cinematic Universe Blade movie may want to begin heavily tempering their expectations. Reports of turmoil within Marvel Studios indicate things are more dire than previously expected, and not just for Blade. Even before the WGA writer strike contributed to a production snag for Blade, it seems that there have been issues plaguing the project for quite some time. Unfortunately, those issues remain to this day and have reportedly gotten worse. Between grinding through directors and writings like a buffet in mid-April and numerous changes to the movie's entire premise, it's a wonder that Blade remains in Marvel Studios' upcoming release slate. But one instance in particular may have catalyzed the studio to finally put its nose to the grindstone and figure some things out. Variety reports that script issues for Blade had recently got so turbulent that the film's highly anticipated lead, Mahershala Ali, was even considering leaving the project. As a result, Marvel Studios boss Kevin Feige hired Logan writer Michael Green to rebuild the whole story from the ground up. The hope is that the Oscar-nominated writer will not only reinvigorate the project but convince the Oscar-winning Ali to remain. The problems with Blade have been evident for years, and there may be more on the way even with its new focus. Now reportedly slated for a 2025 release, Variety also reports that its budget will be under $100 million. While not a number to sneeze at for most regular folks, those numbers are far below what most would expect from a Marvel Studio movie these days. The thing is, if Blade was the studio's only substantial problem, it might be easier to wrangle, but there's plenty else going on below this particular hood. And then it starts to go out and talks about Jonathan Majors and the stuff that's going on with him. So it seems like everything is like one big avalanche going on over there at Marvel, and the ones that's really being affected the most as far as people who are working on projects is definitely Mahershala Ali and the Blade project overall. So yeah, it's really, it's sad when you think about it. It's a disappointment at the same time that, you know, this is actually happening to him, because he can tell that he's really invested into making this movie work, which we have to give kudos to him, because he really wants to please the fans. That's really what it all boils down to. But that part, I'm still stuck on that one script that they said they was going to make him the fourth lead. I'm so glad they got that up out of there. I remember there was one script where they were trying to do it where there was only like 2 fight scenes or something like that in the whole movie. I'm like, did y'all not watch the original Blade movies? Blade was in like a fight scene like almost every other scene. There was very little downtime. And then in the second one, they ramped it up even more. So to say that you want to go from that to having him only do 2 fight scenes, that wasn't going to work. The fans, myself, and others who just casually would have watched it would not have been pleased in the slightest bit. So I'm glad they scrapped that idea, and I think the person who was the writer at that time, I think they fired him or got rid of him, and good thing that they did, because that definitely was not going to work, not for no Blade movie. I don't know what they were trying to do. Then they said, you know, that they was going to make the 4th lead in this movie, and then they was going to make it all about the women and everything like that. Now, what's interesting is Blade actually has a daughter, and it's so many ways they can work that into the storyline without doing what they were going to do. Again, they were going to completely support role him in his own movie, sideline him in his own movie to do whatever it is that they planned on doing. But yeah, Mahershala Ali is going through it. All I'm gonna say is this: if he pulls this movie off, this man not only needs a few million more dollars added into his account from the Marvel Studios, he also deserves a nice vacation on their dime, and possibly get him in some kind of exec role. Like, say if they ever make another Blade movie, then he needs to be in an executive role if he isn't in one already. But I think he might be. I'm not entirely sure. Someone can let me know in the chat or in the comments if that is the case. But overall, I hope that Mahershala Ali is able to pull this through. If he does, he will have worked a miracle. But I would not fault him, and I don't think anybody else should either, or would, if he just packed it up and said, you know what, I'm leaving. Because, I mean, the movie can't be set back any more than it already has. This thing has literally barely left the launch pad. It's like every time they move forward, they get knocked like 5 steps back. Consistently. That's why I said I believe this whole movie is just cursed right now. They haven't even shot anything yet. They have not filmed one scene for this movie. This movie has been in pre-production for the last couple of years. Not one scene has been shot. Not one scene has been edited. I don't even think they've done even costume fittings yet. They might have, I don't know. The furthest thing that they've gotten with this movie is casting. And I don't even think they're done with that, because it's been consistent breaks and interruptions that has hit this movie over and over and over again. So again, if Mahershala Ali pulls this off when the credits roll for this movie, there should be a standing ovation. Honestly, that movie might go down as one of the best movies to come out that year. And it better become a $1 billion movie too, while we're at it. But we'll see what happens.